Shotguns and shotguns.
As I said, this is going to be a misrepresentation of Black imagery, understanding visual representation and the psychological effects of misinformation. Most master teachers at some point touch on the mental effects of the negative imagery that we see on a daily basis. So, one of the first things that I always like to ask when I do this presentation or one of a similar topic is how often in your daily life do you see positive images that reflect Black American culture? You have to just one day when this crosses your mind, or maybe today you can put this homework into effect. Think about, just go through your day and try to keep a track of how many times you see positive images that are specifically geared toward Black America, and think about how many negative images you see. And you can remove TV because we all know that for the most part, TV has negative images of us. Probably up to 95% of the images on television that reflect Black Americans are negative. So think about when you go outside your door. Well, no, start in your home. Do you have um, do you have positive imagery in your home, especially if you have children? It's your responsibility to make sure your children take in images and information that confirms the greatness in them. And you as a parent have to be sure that that starts in home, because we definitely can't leave it up to society to instill those things in our children. So it has to start at home. And then we have to start controlling and changing the narrative of what's pertaining to us once we walk outside our doors. So while you keep that in mind, please enjoy the presentation. I was hoping it could be a little interactive, but I believe that's not going to be allowed. So we're just going to go along here. Okay. So I like to start this way because this is one of the biggest examples of African imagery that has been whitewashed. This hasn't even been whitewashed. This has been scrubbed of all factual antiquity and symbolism. So I always like to start because even as a Pan African that has been, I consider myself conscientious and I have been so for the better part of a decade and a half. And I can still look at this image, and if I'm going to be completely honest with myself, the word Jesus is going to pop up in my head simply because of the past indoctrination that now underlies the correct information. It's a difficult thing for us to take information that has already been processed and schematically, which is the process of which our minds, our brains receive, process, and store information in a process um, uh, um, called oh my God, I'm trying to overthink myself right now. A schematic process is the process of taking in, processing, and storing information for later retrieval. So, unfortunately, most of the Western world and Africa has processed this as a person known as Jesus Christ, who is supposed to be the God's son in the Christian faith. So let's break down this myth. When you look at Hindu religions, the Hindu savior is a reflection of the people, their physical attributes. The same thing in Buddhism. And when you get to us, then there's a breakdown there. And to devote your life to a religion or a savior and to not have done your due diligence of the background research, you're doing a disservice to yourself and the generations that you create after, because we all know we're born into a religion. It's not something that's ingrained in our DNA. So that's another one of our responsibilities, to make sure that our children get the accurate information and they have a savior and a God that is reflected of them. And if not, you can't tell your children that they are of God if their God is not a reflection of them. You'll never have a apple tree that is going to produce orange apples that look like oranges. It's not going to happen. So we have to keep in tune with nature and follow that natural pattern. If we're of something, we have to be a reflection of that in our physical states because we're living physical existences. So let's get some accurate information. The Jesus is the Christian term for this fictional character that has become the greatest character of any story ever to have been contrived by a human being. So let's start with hey, so let's start with breaking down how this happened. So Christianity has perpetrated a lot of plagiarism and theft, most notably with taking the Bible that was originally of an ancient Kemetic culture and taken by the Romans and used as a tool of manipulation and control in the Roman Empire. So, one of the clear examples of plagiarism is the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are in the Christian Bible as well as the Torah, and each one of those commandments have been copied and slightly adjusted to fit the European narrative, but they originally were stolen from the 42 laws of Ma'at, which was the spiritual covenant created in ancient Kemet for the benefit of the Kemetic citizens there. So when the Romans came into North Africa and invaded, they took a lot of the knowledge that was already available there and manipulated it to fit the narrative that they were trying to control, that they were trying to create back in Rome, so that the Roman citizens would be a little more manageable. So we have the Ten Commandments, which were taken from the 42 laws of Ma'at. We also know, if you look at the second bullet point, we also know that there were religious type creeds that that have been uncovered that date back to almost 2,000 years before the so-called birth of Christ. One of these old creeds was implemented by Pharaoh Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and this is one of the oldest accounts of having God attend, who is the disk of the sun and also the son of God. And that's where the first title of the God Son can be found. It doesn't mean that it didn't exist before anywhere. That just means, as far as modern humanity knows, that's the oldest that we can find mention of that information. So then we have this story of Heru and Horus, which existed almost 3 years. I'm sorry, 3,000 years before the story of Jesus. And there are so many examples of things that Heru um, faced in his tales that were directly plagiarized and put into the story of Jesus Christ. This includes his approximate date of birth. This includes the ceremony that the three wise men went through when they got the announcement of the birth of the godson, which was Heru. And three wise men traveled by an eastern star to meet this child. That was directly stolen. Another thing that was directly stolen was his upbringing and teachings and his disciples. he had 12 disciples as well. One of his disciples also turned against him, and he was shunned. He was crucified and buried and resurrected. All of these things in this information of Heru, this tale of Heru existed 3,000 years before the tale of Jesus Christ. And somewhere along 30 BC, 30 years before the supposed tale of Jesus Christ even began, the Romans came in and invaded Kemet um, and learned a lot of this information and took it back to Rome, where they conducted the first Council of Nicaea. And in the Council of Nicaea, essentially, is when they had a lot of scholars go across the globe and bring back information and tools to help them create this new, I guess I'm going to use national, for lack of a better term at the moment, national religion. And that's where European Christianity first began, even though the origins of Christianity are African themselves. That's another lecture for another day, but they definitely completely changed around Christianity. So when you hear someone say that Christianity is a white man's thing, not necessarily, because the origins lie in North Africa and regions that are present day occupied by Ethiopia. But they were taken out of Africa so long ago and manipulated. And then Jesus was added in far after Christianity had even taken a foothold of the northwestern world. So here we are. We have a few more examples. I'm going to quickly go through. Moses, of course. Moses, the name Moses is actually a Kemetic combination of two words, child and born of water. And we all know in the Bible, the tale of Moses goes that Moses was saved from the water by Pharaoh. So that is another component that was plagiarized directly out of Kemetic history and spiritual creeds. And okay, so we've already discussed the Romans, and we had the Council of Nicaea, which was the first council, but there were actually a series that went from making Christianity the national religion all the way to the Second Council of Nicaea, which solidified that Jesus being the Holy Trinity, the God, the Son, and the Spirit. So that actually came in quite a ways after they even adopted Christianity. As for his imagery, what was not changed was a very short and vague description of how Jesus looked in the Bible. We all know that he should have been of darker skin simply because of the location. Common sense is just going to tell you simply because of the location. But having eyes of fire, having feet of bronze, having hair of wool, this is just an artist's depiction of what Jesus, if he had have existed, would have looked like. So even in a tale, the words need to reflect the depiction. But that's another thing with white supremacy and whitewashing. They've done such an amazing job of it that people can read a description that has nothing to do with the image that they see on their church walls, and they'll still associate the two and not even question the description in the book, even though diehard Christians will argue you down that the entire Bible is the word of God, including all of the contradictions. And all of this is done because of the fear of spirituality. So another example that I do like to comment on, especially since I began my lock journey, is Medusa. So I like to show this image. Usually, you're going to get an image before we start the short conversation on the figure, because it's usually a interactive presentation. So this is just a carving in Italy of a depiction of Medusa. So the origins of Medusa come from Europeans finding women in different locations in Africa with what we call now locks. So ultimately, this is a European fear of being attracted to the Black woman, that you would take such a sight and have to attach a negative story to it. So the information that's available goes that when European men um, saw these women and saw this hair, these hairstyles that they had never seen before. You know how when you take information and you tell someone, and then the story gets told to another person, and eventually the story turns into having a negative connotation with women who have hair of snakes. And this was added into Greek mythology, and that's where the tale of Medusa came from in Greek mythology. And to add insult to injury, it was added that if you looked at her in her eyes, you would turn to stone. And this was also another way to deter men from looking at the Black woman and having admiration and attraction for her. Please notice that I did not say sexual attraction, because as we all know, throughout history, the Caucasian man has lusted over the African woman in different forms throughout the period of our unfortunate um, um, meeting since the beginning of them coming along the shores of Africa. So this is another interesting one. So here we have one that's a little bit more harder to guess because I think the information is more widely known. But this is supposed to be a depiction of Hannibal of Carthage. So Hannibal of Carthage is arguably the most important and successful general to have come out of the continent of Africa. Hannibal of Carthage was the son of an emperor in Carthage, which is a country, ancient country of North Africa. So during the Punic Wars, well, before the Punic Wars, he was one of the in the early parts of the Punic Wars. And though he did end up being defeated, the methods that he used that were unheard of, his military training, and also his mind, his I'm sorry, not his mind, his um, his talent for being able to foresee issues and blocks and to be able to figure out routes around them was something that the Romans had not foreseen. So if it wasn't for climate and terrain, he probably would have been the conqueror in the Punic Wars. So unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way, which is another conversation that would be helpful in dispelling a myth that for some reason a lot of Black people in the conscious community have ascribed to, that Africa was named after a white general, the white general that conquered Hannibal, which is absolutely incorrect. And that's another lecture for another day. But this is the great Hannibal of Carthage that has been so whitewashed by Europeans to the point that when the History Channel, that did extensive research to put that particular series together, did a documentary, did a series on Hannibal of Carthage, white people were outraged and wanted it to be pulled from the air because Hannibal was depicted as clearly a Black man, a man of African descent. And they completely lost their minds, despite the evidence and information that's available. So here are a couple of quick examples. Nefertiti has been whitewashed by Caucasians. Actually, a couple of years ago, there was some outrage about some Egyptologists that had called themselves not reimagining, doing a computerized portrait of Nefertiti, and they made her skin so fair, which of course she was of mixed background, so she would have been a bit lighter, but they gave her complete Caucasian features from the long elongated nose and the very long portion upper lip between your nose and your upper lip to very thin lips. She had zero African facial attributes whatsoever, which really struck me as a Black portrait artist. It wasn't hard to believe, considering that even in the art world, if you go to find art books, especially on drawing the human face, they're all based on European, and then sometimes a combination of European and Asian measurements. It's very rare that you even get Latino or indigenous facial measurement techniques for drawing, and it's almost unheard of to get them based on Black features. Maman Bridget is Aloha in Voodoo, not to be confused with Vodun, Voodoo of the Caribbean. And Maman Bridget is the only white Loa in any spiritual system based on Vodun, which is the oldest African spiritual system that we are privy of. So Maman Bridget actually was added in by white Irish that had traveled to the Caribbean as indentured servants, not as slaves. Please, please, please highlight that in your mind. They were never slaves in the Caribbean. They were indentured servants, and they served a maximum of 7 years before they could buy their freedom, which was no option for the Africans that were brought to the Caribbean. So let's be very clear on that. They were Irishmen of Celtic origin. So they added in Aloha as they mixed with the indigenous population in the Caribbean islands, especially in the areas that are now Jamaica. So let's just talk about the physiology of these processes. So schematic storage, which is when you take information output and you take it, your brain takes it in and it has to process the information, break it down, and then store it. And that is a schematic process. So what happens is that we take in this negative information, and these things are tied to the positive aspects of our culture. You get a lot of things with the word Black attached to it that have negative connotations, like black cat, black magic, Black Sunday, and eclipse, these type of things. And they're always surrounded by air of mystique or air of falsehood or air of negativity, of course, because this is European culture to do so. So even though we're aware, for those of us that are aware, I should say, it's still a very difficult thing for us to correct this information because of physiology. You just can't change how physiology works in the human mind. So you can take a word, for example, I've made an example out of myself here. You can have the word afi. Some of you know me, some of you don't. You can have the word afi and associate it with me being a sister of a darker shade of skin, or at least a mid-dark shade of skin. Now we have the stereotype out there that dark is ugly. So now you have two attributes. You have the word dark and you have the word ugly. So they get associated together in the mind to the point where even if you're presented with the word dark, when you're referring to a sister, you're going to unconsciously get the connection of the word ugly, because that is a stereotype that has been presented, that has been fortified, that has been represented to us in so many different forms and fashions throughout our developmental stages that it becomes ingrained in our thought processes. So there is absolutely a scientific, philosophical way that we take in this information and make it a part of how we think about ourselves and feel about ourselves and carry ourselves in our everyday life. So we can't just not see these things. We can't just block these things out and pretend like they don't happen. We have to correct this process in our minds that we've already gone through in the early stages of life, and correct that information, or it's always going to be there. So, prime example. And this is one of the images that you would see in everyday life. This is an image that went viral from being inside a Family Dollar. I believe it could have been something like a Target or a Walmart. But this is something that a lot of people will just go through, and they'll see this, and it doesn't dawn on them because they haven't realized that they're missing those images, and they haven't realized that a lot of the images that are available for them are meant to be negative. And this is such a small one that it will be very easy to miss, which is why me, myself personally, I'm very happy that a lot of these things are being brought to light, and you have people that are constantly on the lookout to bring awareness and attention to these things. So you see that um, in one picture, it depicts a complete family, and then in the other, it's a single mother. That's priming. That's priming the Black woman who's in the baby care aisle that it's okay to be a single mother. So this was another one that went viral. That big companies that we spend money with would do such things, and this has not been the last one. This has not been the last one since, and it was such a big deal when this one happened, and it's happened at least a dozen times with other companies, some small, some large, since. So it's not that they don't know that these things are disrespectful, that things are inaccurate. It's simply that they don't care. So this was one that personally affected me. I had a knee surgery, so I was using a wheelchair for a little while, and I collect Black specialty Barbie dolls. So this was when I actually went online, and these screenshots were both taken the same day, just a minute apart. Because once I saw the Black doll, that there were no fair prices available. I believe the doll was $39.99, and Amazon wasn't even offering it, and there was shipping in addition. But when you go down to the bottom and see the white version of the doll, it was in stock, available, 2-day Prime, a good price, and it was free shipping. Because they haven't, they don't care about our needs and our demands. It's all about the majority population here. So we have to do this ourselves. We can't leave it up to other people to do. So here we go with representation. As a Black woman, my mother definitely got us dolls that looked like us, even though she's not the most conscientious woman. It's just something that seemed like it made more sense to her. I'm sorry if this presentation actually blinks out. I know I'm getting to the end of my battery life with me trying to figure out the mouse. So I'm just going to run through this so super quickly. So the Clark doll experiment was done in the 1940s by a husband and wife. Kenneth and Mamie Clark, they were psychologists who did an experiment with Black children to see which doll they would find more attractive. And the overwhelming majority of the time, the Black children would point out the white doll to be smarter, to be prettier, to be funner, to be more reflective of them. So in the end, this experiment showed that we have internalized negativity of ourselves, to the point where we all have just a little bit of self-hatred as Black Americans in a culture assimilated into a European culture that does not value our natural attributes. And because we've been taught to not value our natural attributes, we go out of our way to try to mix European attributes and give poor excuses, such as, well, I want to be different, I want to change it up, or I don't have the time, or I'm doing, hair protection, or whatever the case is. It goes from the weave to the eyes to skin bleaching to clothing to what we do in our bedrooms. European influences have seeped their way into every facet of Black life, that it is disgusting at this point. But that's what white supremacy does. So why do white people whitewash everything? They do it because they lack culture. Every aspect of European culture has been stolen from some other natural group on this planet. They need to defend white supremacy. So they have to do these things so that in turn, some of us stick up for the things that they've instilled. Like if you get a sister who wears weave and she loves her weave, and her excuses are, I'm protecting my hair right now, or it's summer and my hair's gonna, whatever the case is, that those things have been instilled to us, and we've rationalized them to a point where we are protecting white supremacy when we do those things. So it's important, brothers, it's important for you to reaffirm to your woman that she is beautiful in her natural state. The way her hair comes out her head is how God made her, and you love that. And if you don't, you need to take a look at yourself, because you're not ready to be a king to African woman if you can't appreciate, respect, identify, and confirm these natural things about her. So how do we heal in a sick environment? As Black Americans, how do we get away from all of this European control of what we think of ourselves and how we look? So one of the most important, most Hello, I'm back, you guys. For those who are still in the room, so I just wanted to finish up and add. I hope you guys can see me out here. I just wanted to finish up and add that it's up to us to make sure that we make these changes available for our children. It is up to us for us to correct the misinformation, and not to leave it up to our school systems, even if the schools are being taught by predominantly Black teachers, because the curriculum is set by state, and most of the people on the state boards in the educational departments are Caucasian. So we can't leave it up to that. We have to demand that we have better advertising. We have to demand that media and entertainment is better reflective of positive Black culture. We have to demand these things, and we also have to do these things for ourselves. We can't continuously rely, just demand, and get upset when something doesn't turn out the way that we think it needs to turn out, when we are perfectly capable of doing these things ourselves. So we need to be demanding of our Black actors, of our Black directors, of our Black purse holders in these entertainment and media industries, and hold them accountable and responsible as representers of our culture. Until we do these things, we're always going to just be trying to change things on a small scale, one by one, on a small scale. We're all doing our part, but there's no way that we're going to have a global effect at the pace if anyone would like a copy of the presentation with, oh, I think I'm pressing something. If anyone would like a copy of the presentation, if anyone would like a copy of the presentation with explanation, with voice attached to it, please email me. You can get in touch with anyone in the conference going on this weekend, the Whirlwind Conference, or you can email me at melanatedgreats@gmail.com, and I'll be sure to promptly get you that presentation over. And again, thank you so much, you guys. I'm super sorry I ran over a little bit. I do hope I get an opportunity to do this presentation fully in a bit more of a professional manner. And I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Happy Black August, happy Centennial, happy Flag Day the other day. Garvey birthday, please be sure to do your libations, do your offerings. And yeah, let's get on the chord. Let's get going. Let's change this. Hello, hey, peace, peace, peace.
I want a song too. You got one.
Hey, you guys, did you guys enjoy the presentation?
Yes. Yes.
Yay, awesome.
You know where you showed us those gods? Those are not our real gods. Our family.
Absolutely.
Our,
You're right.
Our mom and our dads are our gods. Our mom
Absolutely. You are so right. Your parents are doing an awesome job.
Harry Doc shotgun. Buck front, yeah. Shot.
Intro to O, and my dude that Timbuktu to Ave. For new, renew your passion, shun the condition, and not the who, what, when, where, and you are from.
At last,
put the higher